Welcome to OOTO, the Out of the Office Investigation. Today, we're digging into a lost Amazonian recipe for a super soil. And I mean a man-made earth so incredibly fertile it stayed black and rich for thousands of years. It's a secret that could literally reshape how we grow our food and heal our planet.
And yeah, it all kicks off with this huge paradox, Alex. It just doesn't add up. The Amazon is this absolute explosion of life, the most biodiverse place on the entire planet. But the soil it's growing on, for the most part, it's just this toxic red clay that's incredibly infertile, totally leached of nutrients by thousands of years of heavy rain.
It's like building a skyscraper on a pile of sand. I mean, how is that even possible?
That's the puzzle, right? See, in a typical rainforest, the fertility isn't really in the soil. It's all locked up in the living stuff above it. The trees, the vines, life itself. The whole system is just this super fast cycle of growth and decay happening above the ground. The second you clear that land for farming, poof, as settlers found out the hard way, the soil becomes barren in just a few seasons. But explorers kept finding something else there, something that just defied all logic.
So, you're talking about those impossible patches of rich, dark earth that archaeologists kept stumbling on, sometimes meters deep, right next to that useless clay.
Precisely. They called it Terra Preta de Indio, which is just Portuguese for black earth of the Indian. And the contrast, well, it's absolutely stunning. On one side, you've got that natural, basically useless Amazonian clay. On the other, this deep, dark, totally nutrient-packed Terra Preta. The crazy part, the natural soil is toast in a few years. Terra Preta has stayed fertile for over 2,000 years.
And that's the real kicker, isn't it? This wasn't a natural fluke. This stuff was engineered by people. It's a relic of a lost technology. So in our investigation today, we are going to crack this ancient code. We'll start with that paradox, then we'll dig into the history of this lost secret and the incredible societies that created it.
Then we'll get into its magic ingredient, biochar, and connect that ancient wisdom to the modern movement of regenerative agriculture. We'll also explore that profound link between the health of our soil and our own health.
And then we're going to bring it right into your own backyard, showing you how you can be part of this regenerative future. Okay, so let's journey back in time. If this soil was man-made, that begs the question, who on Earth made it? And how did they figure out this secret thousands of years ago in one of the most challenging environments on the planet? Wow, this timeline really puts the sheer scale of this into perspective. I mean, we're not talking about a recent invention. The evidence suggests people started creating these soils as far back as 7,000 years ago.
And it wasn't just a few scattered tribes by 2,500 years ago. This was a widespread technology supporting huge, complex societies. We're talking cities, causeways, trade routes, maybe 5 to 10 million people in the Amazon. This soil was the foundation of their civilization. But then the 1500s hit, and European contact brought diseases the native population had zero immunity to.
It was just catastrophic, a demographic collapse of over 90%. The civilizations vanished, cities were just swallowed by the jungle, and the knowledge of how to create this soil, it was lost. And it stayed lost for centuries. Scientists just assumed it was from volcanic deposits, until the 1960s, when this Dutch scientist Wim Sombroek pushed the then radical idea that it was human-made.
But it wasn't until the 2000s that scientists like Johannes Lehmann really reverse-engineered the chemistry, figuring out its key component. Which brings us to today, where we're rediscovering and reapplying this incredible ancient wisdom.
So what was in their secret recipe? Well, when scientists analyzed Terra Preta, they found a pretty consistent mix of ingredients. It was essentially the highly organized waste management system of a large settlement, a perfect closed-loop system.
Right. They found animal and fish bones, giving it calcium and phosphorus. They found food scraps, manure, and ash. And curiously, they found huge amounts of broken pottery, which probably provided permanent structure and aeration, keeping the soil from getting compacted. But the true backbone, the secret ingredient that makes it all last for millennia, was a very specific kind of low-temperature charcoal.
And that brings us to the heart of the mystery. What is it about this one ingredient, this special charcoal we now call biochar, that can create thousands of years of fertility from what is essentially a compost heap? Okay, so it's really important to get this. Biochar is not the same as the ash from a roaring bonfire. Ash is what's left when you burn something completely with lots of oxygen. That's destructive. The ancient Amazonians practiced something totally different, a slash and char method, where they would smolder wood and organic material in a low-oxygen environment.
A process we now call pyrolysis.
Exactly. And instead of creating ash, which just blows away and depletes the soil, pyrolysis creates this incredibly stable, porous carbon structure. It's a fundamental difference. One method, slash and burn, destroys fertility and releases carbon into the atmosphere. The other, slash and char, builds fertility for thousands of years by locking carbon into the ground.
All right, so if biochar is the secret ingredient, it must be some kind of powerful, long-lasting fertilizer, right? I mean, that's the logical conclusion.
It is, but it's completely wrong. And this is the big twist in the investigation. Raw charcoal itself is not a fertilizer. In fact, if you just throw fresh, raw charcoal into your garden, it can actually harm your plants in the short term. It's like an empty, hungry sponge. It will suck up all the available nitrogen and nutrients from the soil, basically starving your plants.
So if it's not plant food, what on earth is it doing?
Well, the magic isn't in what biochar is, but in its physical structure. It performs three incredible functions. First, it's a nutrient magnet. The carbon surface has a slight negative charge, so it attracts and holds on to positively charged nutrients like calcium and potassium, preventing the heavy rains from just washing them out of the soil.
Okay, so it anchors the nutrients. What's the second function?
It's a microhotel. I love this analogy. Under a microscope, biochar is riddled with millions of tiny pores and passageways. These are perfect, safe homes for the beneficial bacteria and fungi that form the soil microbiome, the soil food web. It creates a permanent, protected reef for life to flourish.
And the third is the sponge.
Precisely. That same porous structure soaks up water and then releases it slowly to plant roots during dry spells, which makes the soil incredibly drought-resilient. So you see, it's not fertilizer. It's the permanent infrastructure that allows the soil to hold nutrients, water, and most importantly, life.
And this number is just mind-boggling. It helps you understand how those magnet and hotel properties are even possible. Just 1 single gram of biochar, something smaller than a sugar cube, can have up to 9,000 square feet of internal surface area.
It's an incredible feat of natural engineering. All those nooks and crannies are what provide the real estate for nutrients to park and for microbes to build their homes. That's the secret to its incredible longevity.
You're listening to OTO with research by El Campesino de la Huerta. So, this isn't just a history lesson. This ancient Amazonian practice is the foundation for a modern movement that seeks to fundamentally change our relationship with the land.
That's right. The principles embedded in Terra Preta, building soil, fostering life, working with natural cycles, and seeing waste as a resource are the very same principles that define what we now call regenerative agriculture.
For the last century, much of industrial agriculture has treated soil like it's just dead dirt, an inert substance to just prop up plants while we pump in synthetic chemicals. It's an extractive, short-term model. And regenerative agriculture flips that on its head. It sees soil as the source of health itself, a complex, living ecosystem teeming with more organisms in a single teaspoon than there are humans on Earth. The goal isn't just to sustain the soil, but to actively regenerate it, making it healthier and more alive each year. And by doing that, it tackles some of our biggest challenges head-on: climate change, biodiversity loss, and the nutritional collapse of our food.
Okay, let's focus on the climate change piece for a second. How exactly does this help?
By putting carbon back where it belongs, in the ground. Industrial agriculture, with its heavy tilling and chemical use, releases massive amounts of carbon. Regenerative practices do the opposite. This chart shows how farming methods like keeping the soil covered with cover crops or especially integrating trees in agroforestry systems pull huge amounts of CO2 from the air and lock it away safely in the soil as stable carbon.
Just like the biochar in Terra Preta has been holding carbon for thousands of years.
Exactly. Photosynthesis is the original carbon capture technology. Regenerative agriculture just enhances it. It's one of the most powerful tools we have to actively reverse atmospheric CO2 levels, all while creating healthier, more productive land.
But here's the reality check. For all its incredible potential, this approach is still just a tiny sliver of global agriculture.
It's staggering. Based on current estimates, regenerative practices are applied to maybe 1% of the world's agricultural land. Maybe even less.
So the remaining 99% represents a massive opportunity. If we could shift even a fraction of that, the impact would be transformative.
But it also shows that this change won't just come from the top down. It's about empowering communities and home gardeners to become part of this movement from the ground up.
And that brings us to what might be the most personal and powerful part of this story. The connection isn't just between us and the land. It's between the health of the soil and the health inside our own bodies.
Yeah, this feels like a critical point. How can the very dirt under our feet, the soil we walk on and grow food in, exponentially affect our physical and mental well-being, our resilience, and even how long we live?
It all starts here with healthy soil. When you use regenerative practices, you're not just adding nutrients, you're cultivating a thriving, diverse microbiome in the ground. Billions of bacteria, fungi, and other organisms create a complex food web that makes nutrients available to plants, protects them from disease, and builds soil structure. And that living soil produces fundamentally different food. Decades of research show a steep decline in the nutritional quality of industrially farmed food: less magnesium, less iron, fewer vitamins. Regenerative agriculture reverses that trend. Plants grown in this microbially active soil can draw up a wider range of minerals and produce more protective compounds, the antioxidants and polyphenols that defend our health. The food simply becomes more nutrient-dense. And when we eat that nutrient-dense food, we are directly feeding and diversifying our own gut microbiome. A healthy human gut, just like healthy soil, thrives on diversity. And the science is clear. A diverse gut microbiome is the foundation for a strong immune system, for synthesizing vitamins, and for regulating inflammation. It also directly impacts our brain through the gut-brain axis, influencing everything from our mood to our cognitive function. And finally, it closes the loop. Healthier people create more resilient communities. This fosters local food systems where people are connected to their food source. This allows for a slow-growth mindset, focused on long-term ecological success rather than short-term exploitation. It supports the farmers regenerating the land, creating a self-sustaining, positive feedback loop of well-being, from the soil to us and back to the soil again. And to put the healthy people part into perspective, look at this number. In the U.S. alone, we spend over $4 trillion a year treating chronic diseases that are largely preventable and directly linked to our highly processed, nutrient-poor industrial diet.
So, investing in soil health isn't just an environmental issue. It's one of the most powerful forms of preventative healthcare we have. It's about building health from the ground up, literally, rather than just managing disease.
You're listening to OOTO, with research by El Campesino de la Huerta. Okay, so we've journeyed from an ancient Amazonian mystery to our global food and healthcare systems. Now, let's bring it all home. This isn't just a fascinating story. It's a practical blueprint that anyone, whether you have a farm or a few pots on a balcony, can use to participate in this revolution. You can create your own modern version, Terra Preta Nova, and the process is surprisingly simple. First, you need biochar. You can make it yourself in a simple pit or kiln, or you can buy it. Second, you crush it down to increase that crucial surface area we talked about.
And step 3 is the one we absolutely have to emphasize.
This is the most critical part. You must charge the biochar. Remember we said raw charcoal is an empty sponge? Putting it in your garden uncharged will suck nutrients out of the soil. You have to fill that sponge first. The best way is to mix it into your compost pile. As the compost breaks down, the char gets inoculated with microbes and soaks up all those nutrients. Alternatively, you can soak it for a few weeks in compost tea or liquid fertilizer.
So to be crystal clear, never add raw, uncharged biochar directly to your soil.
Never. But once it's charged, you're ready for step 4. Mix it into your garden beds at about 10–25% of the total volume, and you've just made a one-time investment in the permanent fertility of your soil. You're replicating that ancient Amazonian recipe. And so, we end our investigation where we began, with a mystery that turned out to be a solution. The story of Terra Preta is this powerful reminder that human activity doesn't have to be destructive. Indigenous peoples proved thousands of years ago that we can be a keystone species, a regenerative force that creates ecosystems that are more fertile and abundant than what nature alone could produce.
It really challenges us to look at history not just as a record of what's been lost, but as a library of technologies and wisdom that are waiting to be rediscovered and adapted for our time.
It leaves us with this final thought. What if the greatest solutions for our future are, in fact, buried in our ancient past?